and welcome to album review number 29. Today I'm going to be reviewing Vitalogy by Pearl Jam. Released in 1994, this was Pearl Jam's third studio album and honestly one of my favourite albums of all time. Before we begin, I just want to mention that I now have a second channel, Ozric Aurora Gaming. Ozric Aurora is one word and then gaming's another word. I uploaded some video game clips on this channel and they didn't go over very well. I think the majority of my subscribers want to see album reviews and stuff to do with music, which is understandable. That's the vast majority of the stuff I've done since I started doing the channel. So I've decided that instead of my channel becoming all cluttered and having loads and loads of different stuff, I'll just sort of segment them into different channels. So Ozric Aurora Gaming is going to be video game stuff, and I'll probably start a third one called Ozric Aurora Movies. This channel will continue to have stuff that's musical, album reviews, and I'll probably stick to my poems as well on this channel. So I'll have 3 channels at some point doing all kinds of different things, and at some point I want to actually start reviewing video games and movies. The reason I haven't done them yet is because I don't have the technology or the software to actually, show high definition clips in my review while I'm talking about it with like voiceover. Because you can sit and talk about an album, but you can't really sit and talk about a movie. You don't want to just sit and see someone talk about a movie. You want to see parts of the movie while they're talking about it. In my opinion anyway, that's much more interesting, and the same with video games. But I am just as passionate about video games and movies and TV series like Breaking Bad and The Sopranos as I am about music. So when I started my channel, the plan was never to just do things about music, but it was just like the easiest and what I could actually do with the technology. So I have a second channel, and also you probably have noticed already that this video has edits. Yeah, I'll be editing my videos from now on. I've actually written scripts, so I'm putting more effort in, and I want them to be better because the first few videos, well, the first few years of videos there just weren't very good. Even on my album reviews, they just weren't very good. I waffle on too much, which I'm probably doing now, but I have a reason to this time. I waffle on too much. I go like 50 times in each video, which just isn't very good, and it's not very professional, and it's just not good to watch something like that. So now the edits will make the videos much more concise. My scripts will be much more precise, and I plan to make all the videos shorter so I can get everything I want to see out much quicker and in a much more practical and professional way. Anyway, on to the review. As I said, Vitalogy is Pearl Jam's third album, released in 1994. I'd say their only 2 real grunge albums were their first 2, and then they started to move into a more experimental, slightly more alternative sort of phase in the 90s. This album experiments with psychedelic and progressive elements, and probably the most experimental album apart from maybe Binaural. Vitalogy starts off with an absolutely fantastic opening track called Last Exit. It's short and concise, full of energy and excitement, but also quite complex, with the verses being in 5/4 time. And I think Pearl Jam albums are definitely their best when they start with a fast-paced, really energetic track like the previous 2 albums have done. The one after it doesn't, No Code, but I'm not a big fan of the fact that it starts with a kind of slower one. I think Pearl Jam albums are definitely their best when they start with a fast-paced track. The second track, Spin the Black Circle, in my opinion is nowhere near as good as Last Exit. I've really never been a fan of it. I don't want to say it's too punky, but it's a bit too thrashy. It's just a bit too da-na-na-na-na, when Last Exit has a much more interesting riff going on. But I think the song did win an award, so that's pretty cool, but I've just personally never been a fan of it. After that frantic opening 2 tracks, the album's pace slows right down with Not For You, which I think has such a provocative riff pretty much all the way through. It's got such a groovy melody, and I really like the lyrics too, and it's really one of those songs you can't help but like bob your head and tap your feet to. It's really, really good. I've always loved that song. Track 4, Tremor Christ, is one that's really grown on me over time. I love how eerie it is, especially in the chorus. I love how those long guitar notes sort of add to the atmosphere of the song during the chorus. And it has some pretty harsh guitar tunes as well in it. I've always really thought it was a cool tune, but it's definitely grown on me over time, and now it's one of my absolute favourites on the album. Nothing Man is really beautiful, track 5. Pearl Jam show the diversity of how they can write harder, more heavy tracks, but also really beautiful ballads. I've always loved Eddie's lyrics in this song, even though I don't quite understand what they're about. I think Eddie Vedder has a great talent for provoking emotions from the listener, even if they don't quite understand what the lyrics are about. He has a great talent for doing that, and I think Nothing Man is one of the best songs where he showcases that talent. I don't have much to say about Whipping, track 6. I do quite like the rhythm, but I'd say it's one of the more forgettable tracks on the album, to be honest. But like I said, I do like the rhythm. It is good, but just not great, I'd say. Track 7, Pry 2, is one of the short surreal tracks that appeared on a lot of their 90s albums. They kind of pop up every few tracks in the 90s albums after the first two. I think they give the albums a sort of unique flair and a sort of unique flavour. I do like their 21st century albums as well, but I'd have to say that their 90s albums had more humour and more personality, personally. Track 8, Corduroy. I've never been a big fan of the music, but I have always liked the lyrics. I think the lyrics are about how grunge bands typically sort of wore corduroy shirts, and that was kind of like their style. And big fashion brands and corporations tried to kind of capitalize on that by making their own corduroy shirts for grunge fans that were well overpriced, and basically just like capitalizing on other people's sort of ideas and personality and stuff. So I like the lyrics are about that sort of anti-corporatism and anti-material, that sort of thing. Track 9, Bugs, is probably one of Pearl Jam's most hated songs, but I've always liked it. I like how discordant it is for a Pearl Jam song. Usually their songs are quite sort of easy to listen to. They have been criticised for being a bit too easy and a bit too nicey for listeners in comparison to other grunge bands. But I think this song sort of shows that they do have that sort of edge to them, that sort of weird sort of style that they can bring out if they want to. And I've always loved the lyrics as well. Personally, I think they're about drug addiction, but I have no idea what they're actually about. Track 10, Satan's Bed. This is another one that's grown on me, especially, again, love the lyrics. I think they're a reference to the Bill Hicks line about sort of bowing down to uh, corporations and capitalism and that sort of thing. And Bill Hicks sort of said stuff about that as well, of course, and that was his style, Neil not selling out. Especially like the chorus, and it's another bit in 5/4 time, so that's cool. Track 11, Better Man, is probably the best song on the album. It's also a big fan favourite. It's absolutely beautiful. The lyrics are gorgeous, the melodies are gorgeous, and the lyrics I think are really immersive. And it's an all-round fantastic track. One that's a huge fan favourite and one I've always loved. Track 12, Ea de Vanita, is another experimental track on the album. I love the bass guitar sounds and the chanting in the background. I think it's really quite humorous and really cool, but it's also a great lesson as well. These tracks sort of remind me of the short transition tracks between sort of the longer songs on Tool albums, which is cool. If you listen to Tool, you know, like Anima onwards, they had quite a lot of tracks on the albums, and there'd be a lot of ones that are only maybe a minute or two long that are sort of transitions between songs. I think Tool did it really cool as well, but Pearl Jam actually did it first, so I think that's really cool. Track 13 is Immortality. Like Verses and 10, the two previous albums, this album's last proper song is a kind of slow one. Well, I personally prefer Release and Immortality from the last two albums. This one's definitely darker, it's more melancholy. Pearl Jam, I think, have an absolutely brilliant talent for creating simple but really interesting melodies and rhythms, and I think it's showcased brilliantly here. It's a great end to the album. Well, not really the end, but great last proper song. Track 14 is called Hey Foxy Mop Handle Mama, It's Me. It's also known as Stupid Mop. The recordings in this song of people talking are actually from a real mental institution. There was a documentary done in the 80s, and they interviewed a lot of the patients, and the sort of a lot of the sound clips appear in this song, and it's quite disturbing but also quite interesting for a track. I actually used to think that it was a bonus track. I thought Immortality was the last one, and then it was just a bonus track on the CD I had. But it actually is the last track on the album. It slowly builds in intensity throughout the song. The hectic guitar sounds and the hectic drumming are absolutely fantastic, and it almost reminds me of something like King Crimson would do, like maybe the talking drum from Lark's Tongues and Aspic. It's that hectic. It's really really cool, and definitely, like I said about Bugs, Pearl Jam aren't a band that do these kind of things very often, but when they do, they're actually very good at it. Overall, I'd have to say that Vitalogy is probably my second favourite Pearl Jam album, and it's probably the most experimental, apart from maybe Binaural. While Binaural incorporated more kind of stoner rock, psychedelic influences, Vitalogy is just as fast paced as the previous albums, but the album is laced with surreal experimental moments, a couple of complex time signatures, and I'd say is a brilliant transition from their grungy stuff of the early 90s to the more alternative stuff of the late 90s. experimental moments have popped up in pretty much every Pearl Jam album, but nowhere near as much as this at this point. And they've definitely shown up in every album after this. So this was, it kind of showed that the idea that nothing was off the table for the band. It was definitely their most ambitious album to date and showcased just how versatile and diverse this brilliant grunge band could be. Anyway, thanks for watching, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you enjoyed the edits. There were a lot of edits in this video and I hope they turn out pretty well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.